Hi, thanks for joining us on Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, an NOCS Heart podcast that allows us to make the mental health victories of everyday Ghanaians accessible, relevant, and relatable. We hope that you enjoy listening to us and learning lots, and we hope you do come back again to learn some more. Now, today's episode. Good evening, Prof. I don't even know how to start. I am so excited to have you on this podcast. Really, really glad. This is the first episode of Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, and I'm already incredibly excited about the topic you suggested today. So please, Prof, not everybody knows you. Professor, please tell us a little more about yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, and nice talking to you and meeting you and being on this program. My name is Kwasi Osei, former Chief Executive of the Mental Health Authority and former Chief Psychiatrist of the Ministry of Health. I'm now enjoying my retirement, so I'm now a retiree. Thank you. So that's me.
So much. So we'll go straight into the many questions that may be on people's minds. And as the topic suggested, what do you know about mental health? So please tell us, what is mental health?
Well, you talk about the mental health, then you're talking about the normal thing. But mental illness or mental disorder, that is the abnormality, that's a disease condition. So mental health as a normal thing, we are saying that if somebody has a mental health, you mean this person is in a state of mind in which he is able to be productive to himself. He can cope with the daily stresses of life. He is able to, as I said, daily stresses of life. He's able to cope with this. In fact, every time when you get up in the morning and you are going to work, you get into a vehicle or a personal vehicle and you go to work, it is really stressful. But because you are capable of coping, we don't recognize that. But when you don't have mental health, then you break down. So to have mental health, it means you are able to cope with the daily stress of life. You are able to be productive to yourself, and you are able to learn and work, and you find meaning in life. Then we say you have mental health. Now, if there is a significant disturbance in any of these modalities that I've described, being able to cope with the daily stress of life, being able to work and be productive to yourself, to your family, and to your community, finding meaning in life, then, and if this disturbance is significant, clinically significant, meaning it requires to be attended or treated, then you have mental illness. So basically, that is mental health as against mental illness. We sometimes call it mental disorder. Basically, it's about the same. Mental illness or disorder. So we will use it interchangeably. Strictly speaking, there's a technical difference, but the difference does not matter much here. So let's continue to use them interchangeably.
Thank you so much. Wow, you learn something new every day. So mental health is like having good physical health. If I'm able to walk,
Sorry?
mental health is like having
Uh-huh.
physical health. If I'm able to walk, talk, run, eat, I'm healthy physically. But if I'm unable to walk, talk, then there must be an illness, and therefore that's what we call mental illness.
Exactly. But let me just add that it's a crucial component of health. You know, you say there is no health without mental health. And fundamentally, the definition of health is when one has a physical, psychological, and social well-being. So psychological or mental well-being is there. So you must be mentally well, then you say you are totally healthy. Yeah.
Nice. I think when we talk about keep fit, keep healthy, sometimes we just leave out the mental bit, but it's part of what makes us healthy in total. Thank you so much, Prof.
Exactly.
Very insightful. Could you tell us what are some of the different kinds of mental health conditions? You talked about illnesses, but are illnesses the only thing? You talk illnesses and disorders which are close. Does everybody having a mental health challenge have to have an illness?
Well, it's not quite true. Sometimes we say everybody has a little something. And when it's not come up, then we say it's not come up. But that is not quite true. If you are well, you are well. If you don't have mental health issue, you don't have mental health issue. You are well. The only difference is that you can easily slip into mental health condition or mental ill health. So the line between being mentally well and being mentally unwell or having mental illness is a very thin line.
Oh,
Anybody can slip into it, but it
anybody.
does not mean that if you've not slipped into it, you have it, but it's not showing. If you don't have it, you just don't have it.
Okay,
So yeah, that's right.
continue.
But then let me say that when you say mental illness, strictly speaking, you should be saying mental illnesses because it's not just one condition.
Hmm,
If you have malaria, it is malaria. We know some mosquito bit you and gave you the parasite and you have malaria. So it's one condition.
condition.
Even there, strictly speaking, there are different types of malaria, but notwithstanding, malaria is malaria. But mental illness is a whole lot of conditions, over 300 conditions that are all mental illnesses. So it's not just one entity. So we can't say somebody has mental illness, the other person has mental illness, they all have the same mental illness. No, different over 300 such entities. The schizophrenias, the bipolars, the depressions, they are all different entities.
Wow, 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 wow. 300 will not leave my mind for a while. And see that there are different entities. So it's like having a cold, having malaria. There are different kind of illnesses. You can't just say you are sick and we are all sick the same way. That's very, very.
Exactly.
But you made a good point, and I want to double click on it. You said that it's not like everybody has a mental health illness and there's a thin line. You either have it or you don't. But if you don't have it, there's a thin line. That means that when you are not able to cope with the stresses of life, then the symptoms of the mental illness start to show. Is that, would I be correct in saying that? If only you have
Yeah,
it.
you'll be correct. You'll be correct. But again, as I said, because there's a thin line between mental health and mental ill health, let me say the conditions we call mental illness are a lot. I've already mentioned over 300. But it's so common that generally we say for every 5 persons, one person has a mental health condition. So 1 in 5, that's how common it is. That means 20% of the population. Now, of the remaining 4 who don't have it, one may have it in his or her lifetime before he or she passes on.
Okay.
One at any time, one of the 5 has it. One of the remaining 4 will have it at some point in time in his life. And that means at any time, for every 5 people, 2 persons, either they have it or they will have it tomorrow. And that tells us how common it is.
And
But if you are lucky and you don't have it at any time, you just don't have it. But you can maintain yourself, and if you are not able to do so, then you can slip into the mental ill health or mental illness. And as we move on, I'm sure we can discuss what can trigger me into mental illness.
you talked about how common it is. So in Ghana, do you think that percentage still exists? Or for us, I mean, the sun is shining. We are a little different. What do you think the prevalence of mental health illness, either for those who have it or those who may have it in the future, is in Ghana?
There was a study, and this was as far back as 2009, but published in 2013, that showed roughly the same figure of 20%. It actually studied the extent of psychological distress that people have. And if you have moderate or severe psychological distress, that significantly amounted to having mental illness. And they show that about 90% of Ghanaians had a moderate to severe psychological distress. And that roughly comes to about 20%, 1 in 5, having mental illness. So that generally is the figure. It conforms to the world trend. So it is a common thing, it's highly prevalent in the whole country. For any condition, if you have it 1 in 5, it's a common phenomenon. And so that is how we need to recognize that it's a lot in the system.
I think that is one of the reasons why I wanted to start a podcast like this. I think that statistics is eye-opening. I won't even say alarming, eye-opening, because it means that if all Ghanaians were to sit in a taxi driver, passenger, left, right, and in the middle. That means one person of all the taxis that will pass us by with full cars, or even not even a taxi, but any salon car that can take 5 people, means that every car would have at least one, if we're to do an average. Or maybe one car will have and then other cars will not have. But it's just because of how common it is. But for us as Ghanaians especially, it seems a little far off. Luckily for us, we have you here. I must say, and I'm really happy. I want us to ask this. How are mental health cases, illnesses, different from mere feelings that go unchecked? You know, sometimes like I get very, very angry with someone, and before I know it, I'm breaking, well, I'm not breaking things, but I may act irrationally. Does that mean I have a mental health issue? Or how will I know the difference? What really is the difference?
By the way, before I come in there, let me just say that to say that 1 in 5, every fifth person has a mental health issue, does not necessarily mean that every fifth person is mad. So mental illness is not the same as madness. Yes, madness is a late term for severe mental illness, but that's only the severe form. There are many other degrees and levels of mental illnesses that are not madness. And so we should not conclude that, oh, if you say somebody has a mental illness, or if somebody is one of the 5, the fifth person who has a devil is mad, that would be wrong. So let's understand that you can be normally dressed, you can be normally speaking, you can be well, you can be doing anything, and yet you could have mental illness. Now, having said that, how do we distinguish between mental illness and maybe somebody just being a little emotional or being irrational? Often it's the severity and the persistence that matters. The severity and the persistence. So let's say, for instance, even stripping naked in itself does not mean we are mentally ill. Otherwise, twice a day in our rooms, we all strip naked when we are going to the bathroom. That would mean you are mentally ill. But no, that is not it. The timing, the circumstance, all those things determine that you have the mental illness. This same person who can strip naked in his bathroom and will be normal, if he strips naked or only in his panties at Makula Market, you can imagine what it means. Or in the classroom setting and you strip naked, you can imagine what it means. So it's not the condition per se, but the timing, the occasion, the severity, and also the frequency. Again, supposing you went to your friend's room and you saw him laughing uncontrollably, laughing, and you ask him, oh, what's happening? He says, oh, I remembered a very beautiful, nice incident. I won Lotto yesterday, and that's why I'm happy. You would agree that it makes sense that he can be happy. Yeah. But you come back tomorrow, and this same person is laughing uncontrollably. He gives you a reason for laughing alone. A third day, no matter what excuse he gives you, you will say there is something wrong. So the persistence of the condition that determines the abnormality. A typical case we call OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Typical example is that when you wake up in the morning, you are going to work. You close your door and lock it. You take a few steps. Something tells you that no, you didn't lock it. Go and check. And you go and check. Just once or twice is normal. It can happen to all of us. But then after you've checked, it's locked. You take a few steps and something tells you didn't check it well. Go back and check. You go back, you check, it's locked. You take a few more steps, something tells you, no, you didn't check it well. And it can repeat about 10 good times before eventually you have your freedom and you go. And not just one day, it could be every other day or every day throughout the week, or not just 1 week, every other week or 2 times a month. Definitely, this is abnormal, and is occurring more than the frequency that is desired. So this becomes an abnormality. Or you see anybody seeing, let's say, a snake coming to your room, you run away. Yeah, because it's reasonable to be afraid of snakes. But a cockroach drops in your room and you feel like running through the rooftop. And not just once, twice, every time you see cockroach, you react. This is an abnormality. Fear of cockroach. It's a mental illness. So the point I'm making is that it's not just a condition in itself, but the severity, the persistence, also, and the timing and the circumstance, the place, all determines whether we can say you have a mental illness or not.
I like what you said about OCD because at a point in my life, people say, "Oh, I have OCD." This means they are very particular, they are control, but it's not really that. It's about checking, rechecking, trying to get something in a certain space over and over again. And that means that they have a mental health illness. But
And it's a minor one and not a major one. It's a minor or mild mental illness, not a major one.
we're also talking about this the spectrum, like it's different varying degrees. So
Exactly.
that is extremely helpful. Why? So example, if I were to lock a door and I will check and I will go back and check again, and I realize that, oh, the following day I checked, I'll tell myself, "Okay, what's wrong with you? Like, you've locked the door, lock it, then you leave." I've shaken it off. But why can't people who have such a condition, you mentioned so many, I think we'll go into some of them. Why can't, maybe briefly, but why can't people just shake it off? Or somebody says, "I'm depressed," they are sad, but we all get sad. Once in a while, we wake up and we want to face the day. Other days too, we just want to lie in bed, but we shake it off, right? So what is different? Why can't people with mental health illnesses just shake it off?
So again, if it is normal and not to the point we call it an illness, mental illness, you can shake it off.
Okay.
So you feel that your hands are dirty and you go and wash it. It's normal. But then you wash it, you come back, something tells you it's dirty, go and wash again. You go and wash, something tells you that edge that you can't resist. And indeed, if you attempt to resist, you feel so uncomfortable up there in your mind that the only way out is to do it. That's a compulsion component of it. So the obsession is for you to want to go and clean the hands or to go and lock the door or to go and do a repetitive action. And the compulsion is the fact that you feel obliged within you, because if you don't do, you feel so uncomfortable, so restless. But if you do it, you feel relieved. That is the illness component, and that is why you can't shake it off. But if you don't have it as an illness, you can always shake it off. So the fact that you can't shake it off, the idea occurs to you in your mind so intrusive and you can't shake it off. That is the illness component. If you are not ill, if you don't have the illness, you can always shake it off.
Wow. So if, say, I'm doing something which may be abnormal, you talked about the timing, you talked about the severity, you talked about the frequency. Not being able to shake it off means that I may probably need some professional help. But I'm wondering,
Exactly.
all mental health conditions require support from a therapist or psychologist? Because you mentioned that there's a difference between just feeling some way or doing something which for whatever reason, but there's also one where you can't shake it off. Would all of them require professional support, like a psychologist?
Not necessarily, not necessarily the minor one, the mild ones, you may even live with it. Like if you have OCD, you may live with it, except that you become uncomfortable at some point in time when you realize that, well, I need to go, I'm getting late. I need to go lock my door and go, and I'm getting late, and something tells me, no, 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 wait. Then that is the discomfort of it. But otherwise, you can live with it, and that's no harm. Unlike the severe one, in which you might be aggressive and you might damage other people or injure yourself. But in minor one, you could live with it. And in that case, you might even not require professional help.
Ooh.
But again, you might not require professional help. That is why sometimes you may require even just talking therapy. So a pastor or an elder in your family, elderly person, an uncle, can just probably talk to you, advise you, and it might work. But if it gets to a certain point beyond just mild, you definitely require professional help. Even the talking requires professional type of talking, professional advice. That is where the counseling comes in, and not just ordinary advising you to solve it.
I think that's another reason why somebody said to me that, oh, in Ghana, we don't have mental health issues. But then somebody also chipped in who had traveled and said, in Ghana, we have a lot of people we can talk to. You can literally wake up in the morning and go to a shop by you, say, good morning, Auntie Amma, I want to buy needle. And before you know, you have a conversation where that person had lived. It wasn't that common. Does that mean that some of the conversations we have, because we are very social as Ghanaians, actually may help address the very, I won't say very minor, but the minor mental health issues, such as somebody may even be walking around and not even realize that they have a mental health illness because it's minor and they have, for want of better term, good conversations that are helpful.
It certainly does help.
Wow.
Like minor depression, a mild depression. You, as you said earlier, one day you wake up and you feel like not interested in anything. Just once a while, that does not harm at all. Maybe just twice, no problem. But if it persists for about 2 weeks, then we call that depression, clinical depression. Now, in the case of the mild depression, your point is that, and the question you are asking is that, do I always require professional help? Not necessarily. So if I wake up in the morning and somebody can visit me and ask me, how am I? How's the day going? And if I express any concerns I have, if we can talk it over, yes, it can help. And so with the minor conditions, we are all in our part of the world where we are so communal, so social. Yes, we can help each one a lot. So that does help. But it gets to a certain point that it does not matter much. You require professional help. Sometimes even you require medication to be given or some other such modality of treatment. So it depends on the degree, the severity. Yes.
Wow, 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 wow. A lot of questions are going through my head, but I'll try and be mindful of our time and also just try and fix some of the questions we did prepare for this. Um, if it's so common, right? Why then is it so common for us as a society to readily think of a mad person on the streets? When we think of mental health, then the first thing comes to the guy who doesn't have a kempt hair, or the person who is walking naked and somebody has tried to cover them up. What do you think drives that? Because it really is very common from what you've said so far.
Well, it's our mental health literacy, our understanding of mental issues. So we don't have that high understanding. It's part of our background as a society. Until recently, I mean, we spiritualize a whole lot of things.
Okay.
If somebody has an issue we don't understand, it's very easy for us to attribute it to witchcraft, witches, the Satan, the demons, and whatnot. So that robbed us of our ability to understand these issues and these realities. So we tag everybody, especially if you see one or two people with that severe kind of mental illness, you say, we have that impression in our mind that that is the nature of mental illness. So anybody who has any degree of mental illness, we associate it with that kind of condition. So it all comes to the fact that we don't have an understanding, adequate understanding of mental health. So our literacy, mental health literacy, is very low in this country. And it seems to be taken over by superstition. Unfortunately, we are a religious people, that's great. But we tend to take our religiosity to superstitious dimensions, where everything is Satan. You wake up in the morning, you sneeze, and you find a reason behind your sneezing. You walk and you stumble over a stone, and you find a reason behind your stumbling. Maybe the witches are after you and whatnot. We have spiritualized basically our life, and that robs us of that adequate understanding of mental health issues.
I like what you said about it robbing us. It hasn't robbed us of our spirituality or us getting close to God. I'm a Christian and I know you are too. But it also just blinds us to the fact that this could actually increase our knowledge in the area of mental health. But it just easy to go, oh, it's a spirit. Oh, it's this. Let me use a typical example that I like to just so that people can relate to it. A lot of times when you are driving on the road and a bad driver is in front of you, and you get to see the driver. In our culture, people will say, are you a serious driver? But when they see it's a woman, they say, oh, it's a woman. They won't even ask what is wrong. They won't. So suddenly, the fact that bad driver is a woman just blinds you to any other thing that could have caused it. And I think that's what the spirituality has done to us. We easy just say, see that they are, even when they are very mad, I went to a trotro station, they were very mad, and the person was visibly, I mean, they were gone. And somebody came and said, he's not a good man. He used to take prostitutes and not pay. And one of them cursed him. So suddenly, everything is very spiritual or it's a curse. So that's very eye-opening for me on the mental health literacy. And I think it's an honor to be part of such a program to help increase the literacy and help us make good decisions for ourselves and others. Wow.
In the case of the typical example you gave, you driving and then you see a woman, maybe the woman makes a mistake, and then you are able to forgive it. That is not so much spiritual. That doesn't have much to do with spirituality. It has a lot to do with our appreciation of the value of the woman.
Okay.
Right. So for a man, we expect the man to be a good driver. We expect a woman not to be a good driver, which is wrong. It's part of the stigma we have about the situations. It's not spiritual, but our appreciation of the value we give to the fair gender. So we think that, oh, she's a woman, she's not supposed to be a good driver, by the way, anyway. So she makes a mistake, I can forgive it. But a man who is supposed to be responsible in terms of driving, and you made this mistake, that then we can forgive you. It's not so much spiritual, but just our appreciation or the respect that the value that we place on.
True. So someone suffering from a mental health issue will say, oh, go and pray. Or we would just assume that something's wrong. Maybe God is not happy with them or they went to do something bad instead of assessing what is happening or finding out more. I'm really excited. I personally am learning a lot. I try to read a lot about mental health, but I'm learning a lot today and I'm really excited about it. We would go on a commercial break in a few minutes, but I'm hoping that we can delve into a few more questions before that time is up. If mental health is so common, and if
mental health is
illnesses are so common, 20%, the last study was about 19%. That means that I could end up going to an office or to church, and somebody around me may be suffering from a mental health condition. They may not tell me, but as you said, severity, abnormality, maybe you hear somebody be so negative all the time, they can't shake it off. If I suspect, I'm not a doctor, but if I have a feeling that someone around me does have a mental health condition they're struggling with, how can I help make their coping, the ability to cope a little better? Because it really is about not being able to cope with the normal stresses of life. How can I help? So what can I do?
Well, it depends on your relationship with the individual. So let's put it into two categories. Somebody you don't know him, but you're not so free with him, as against another person that you are free with, or maybe even a relation. In the case of relation, you can easily approach the person and advise that, Charlie, I think that we need to look at a few things. And maybe let's go and see, go to the hospital or the specialist and see. That, and the person will not feel offended. So that you can see. If it's not a familiar person or somebody you know, it might not be that easy. You might go through somebody else who knows him enough. Or otherwise, you can establish rapport and say, I think that you will probably require some assistance. So it depends on the conversation that you can hold with this person that will enable you to be able to be of assistance. Otherwise, you might even infuriate the situation and you might find yourself in trouble.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. You said infuriate. That actually leads us to the next question, but Prof, we ran out of time and we will go on a small break and come back. Thank you so much. If you've been listening to us, this is Calm Hearts, Calm Minds. We want to make the mental health victories of everyday Ghanaians more relatable, relevant to you, and accessible for those who are trying to find help or want to help others. So thank you so much, Prof. We'll go on a short break and come back. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the commercial break. We have with us Professor Apesi. He's the former CEO of the Mental Health Authority of Ghana. He shared a lot of knowledge with us already, and I'm so excited about what we've learned so far. We talked about what mental health is, what it is not, mental illness, when it actually is a mental illness. I think one thing that's sticking with me, the severity, the frequency, and even the timing and place of some of these things that give us an idea that someone may be struggling with a mental health issue. You or someone else may be struggling with a mental health issue. We just ended on the note on how we can help make someone help them cope with the mental health struggle that they have. And you mentioned the importance of having a relationship. That if you are close to the person, I mean, you can start having a conversation. Let's see a counselor, a therapist. Let's have this checked out. And if you don't have a relationship with the person, you can start to build a rapport that would help you guide them to that point. What if that person is, say, I don't know, someone who is a little far off, like a pastor or a boss, or maybe an auntie or a neighbor, but you are just a little concerned, but you don't have that relationship, you don't have that privilege of having such a relationship. Is there a way that this will move to my next question, not to make it worse?
Yeah, so again, it depends on the severity for and the severity might also determine whether he is being a danger to himself or to others. Now, if he's a danger or a potential danger to himself or to others, then you don't actually even need his permission to give him the support.
Oh, wow.
You don't even need his permission because at that point his health is more important than any cases you might want to send. So it becomes very imperative that you can intervene. You can get people to help you to maybe probably restrain and then take him to the nearest facility where he can get help. Or if the situation, the severity will allow you the laxity of time, then you might resort even to the police station, to the police or to the courts, that you can get a court warrant to get him to be taken on board. But again, if it's a minor illness that does not require that kind of condition, then you might only try to get a relation of his and talk to the person. If, as you said, it's a pastor, you may get another pastor to talk to him or his superior to talk to him, and then eventually you might be able to bring some sanity to him. So while it depends on the severity, it depends on your relationship with him, it depends on the extent to which he's a danger to himself or to others. All that will determine the kind of approach that. When we are not sure, however, when we are not sure, it's best to fall on the professionals and they will decide how to intervene at that time.
So let me ask you as a professional. I have, let's say, a friend who comes to work, is always frustrated, gets angry easily, and it doesn't seem to be going away. No matter what you do, the person will just go into outburst, start shouting, and people say, oh, that's how they are. But I'm thinking the severity and the frequency doesn't really make add up that they may not be having a mental health condition. I want to be very cautious because I know I'm not a medical professional, and I know some of these things are determined by medical professionals. Otherwise, we can go around saying, throwing words, bipolar, schizophrenia, all around as if we are experts, but being mindful that I'm not. Is there a way I cannot make their situation worse? Not make them so, I don't know, aggressive or not. I don't know how to put it. Is there something I can do if I suspect someone has a mental health condition? They are not harming themselves. They are not breaking bottles, but their character and what they keep doing, which speaks to the severity and the frequencies, for me, getting out of hand. There's something I can avoid.
Yeah, there's something you can do. One, what you can do and what you can avoid. What you can do, for instance, as you said, a working colleague, and you see him or her with this kind of behavior, you can approach your boss, that I've noticed this about my friend, about my colleague, and it seems that he does not recognize it or will not adhere to any piece of advice to help him. And your boss will find a way. Your boss might call him and might even give him a letter to go for medical checkup. And that will be very useful to him. On the other hand, what you can also avoid is to avoid irritating him. In fact, even persons who are frankly mentally ill, severely mentally ill in the streets, is the irritation that may cause them to also be counter-aggressive. So you see this person, you make fun of him, you mock him, then that can become irritating. Or as you say, this working colleague, and you are always picking on him, making mockery of him, making fun of him. You are irritating him, and that will trip him or trigger him into anything. So avoiding that is very important. Know what he wants, know his right mood, and approach him, talk to him when he's in his right mood, not when he's in his elements. So knowing the right mood, the right timing, to be able to approach it does help a lot, and avoid unnecessary debates, unnecessary arguments. Under normal circumstances, you probably might want to argue with this person over any length of time over an issue. In this particular case, that you realize that this is what is my friend is going through. Why argue with him? So avoid unnecessary debates, unnecessary arguments. But very importantly, try and find a way of helping him go through his boss, his family member, and to seek some help for him.
I like what you said in my local dialect, which is Akan. They'll say Enkokano, like don't go and it now makes me see how we as a people we may have even managed minor mental health issues just by advice like that. Enkokano nim says not it. Now also when him say the buffon oh yeah, day. What did you go? So it's amazing how as you speak, I can relate it to some of the advice I've received as a child and how that may have even helped manage mental health issues around us. What about stuff like maybe this one, the person is irritable? What about someone who just seems despair in life and they can't seem to get out of a space where they are just upset? I want to border it on depression, but I don't know all the definitions. But we've talked about the extreme. Someone is irritable, angry, animated, But what about those who just, I don't know, they are just a bit
So
weird?
they might simply be going through a stressful situation, stress. He might be going through stress. So the stress is something that becomes like a challenge that challenges a person's coping mechanism. That he looks like he could break down. He is not finding a way of handling the issues about him. Such a person is not necessarily mentally ill, but is going through stress. Indeed, you might say he's mental ill. He is not broken down yet, but he's also not his normal self. So he has mental ill health. So stressful situation, and that can disrupt his life totally. So again, approaching him, advising him where you can, encouraging him to seek support advice will do a lot. Or you can go through his family members, you can go through his bosses, his church members, superiors, that will help a lot. But if it gets to a certain point that you realize this person is, so to speak, beyond advice, beyond counseling, then obviously you require professional support in that matter.
Thank you so much. I like the way you mentioned about people harming themselves, it interfering with being able to cope. So, but also mentioned that a very stressful time can also do that to you. It doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental illness. So
Okay.
for me, I think, would I be correct in saying that some of the warning signs, either for me as a human being or for others, is when should I say my regular life is disrupted because of how I'm feeling? Would that be a good warning sign to say, okay, if this keeps on going, or I can't find a reason for it, maybe, okay, I've had a stressful time. Maybe I'm moving house, or I'm making a big investment, or a family member is ill. Those are things that can be very stressful. But if I don't have any of those reasons, and then I find out that I'm getting angry all of a sudden with too many people, or I can't seem to wake up in the morning to do anything, would that for me be a warning sign that you should seek some help?
As you said, a warning sign. So that doesn't mean you have it, but it's a good warning sign. Once you recognize that for whatever reason you are now irritable, you are now restless, you are now easily confused. The least thing, then you are on edge. Obviously, it's a warning sign. You can look into yourself and recognize what is it that may be causing you that stress, and then help yourself. For instance, you realize that I have too much work on me these days, and I don't seem to be able to get a finger on it. You recognize that, then you might find a way of getting support. Maybe a housewife or a woman, and they realize that too many things at home. It might mean you probably may require a house help, or your husband. You need to see how you can sit down with your partner and see how you can apportion some of their responsibilities. That does help a lot. Or you are just tired, cumulative fatigue over a period of time. Maybe you've not gone on leave for some time. It might mean that you may need to go on leave, take a leave, go and rest somewhere, forget about everything, even switch off your mobile phone and just have a good rest for some 2 weeks. You come back refreshed. So yes, it is a warning sign once you realize that. And then you sit up and see what could be pushing you into that. If you don't find anything and yet you still can shake it off, then obviously your next step might be, let me seek a professional help.
Thank you so much, Professor. I love what you said. Warning signs doesn't mean you have a mental health illness, but it's a good warning sign to get some help if needed. And if you can't just shake it off, you looked into yourself, you can't really find a reason, that could also be another warning sign. Professor Say, you have given us so much knowledge this evening. I absolutely can't wait to have you back. I know someone who knows. He said, make sure you ask him about the history of mental health in Ghana. So I'll do that one day. But now that we've come to the end of this episode, which is the very first, thank you so much for gracing this occasion for us, is if there was one thing, if everything you said today, if there was one thing you really wanted us to remember, what would it be?
Well, I want people to remember that mental illness is no respecter of any individual. We who are talking today, it could happen tomorrow that we might get into a certain situation that we are not able to cope with it, and we may break down as mental illness. So it can happen to me, it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody. And for that reason, if it does happen to anybody, you should have all the empathy and even the sympathy for that person, and not to discriminate or stigmatize the person, because it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. So that is one take-home message that I want everybody to understand. If it does happen to you, mental illness, mental ill health, that is not the end of the world. There is help for you available. Fortunately, these days, we have a lot of mental health personnel. Some 10, 15 years ago, there were very few of us, maybe just about 4 in the whole country. Now there are over 70 psychiatrists, numerous clinical psychologists, numerous mental health nurses. So there is no excuse for one not to get help. So if it does happen to you, seek help. And three, if it does happen to your colleague, your neighbor, Always remember that you can get help for the person. Don't stigmatize him. And don't spiritualize it. Don't attribute it to the witches, the Satan, whatnot. Take it as somebody who has had malaria, and the treatment is on earth here, and you can also have support.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much. My heart sings, and I'm very happy for all the knowledge you shared, the power you've given us to find help and to even help others, that we have every right to help them. And I think for me, my personal takeaway that there are warning signs. It doesn't mean you have, but it's also good to just check and confirm that, no, this is nothing. So what you are thinking, maybe you should just have a conversation with someone else. When you talked about the household, I just remembered that there was a man and his wife, they were fighting, they almost were on the brink of divorce. They got help and all their problems were solved. It's not a joke. So, and personally, having grown up, been married, and then also done things alone with my husband, and then also had a house, I can see how that level of tiredness and stuff can make things just a little easier when you have help. So please, there are warning signs, but just get it checked. You never know. Thank you so much, Professor. I appreciate
My
this.
pleasure.
I can't wait to have you back.
You're welcome. Good to be here. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Calm Hearts, Calm Minds, and Innocent Heart podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and we hope you learned something new. We look forward to you joining the next episode. We can't wait to see you soon. Bye.